President Trump's statement about his son being high quality and transparent was specifically designed to steer clear of any future legal issues and the meeting itself. Elaine, the White House says the president is frustrated. The Russia story will not go away, and I can tell you the sort of fake news bravado that White House aides have exhibited for months about this story is, like the denials themselves, under siege.
Well, Major, do we know where President Trump was during this meeting last June?
Yeah, he was in Trump Tower. So he was in the same building. And that doesn't mean he had any awareness of it. The White House says he was not aware of this meeting. But what we do know is it's his building. He controls access to it. His son-in-law, Jared Kushner, was there. His son, Don Jr., was there. And if you look at a Forbes interview of Don Jr. from earlier this year, he says throughout his entire life he talks to his father all the time. They are practically inseparable. And, oh, by the way, campaign chairman of that era, Paul Manafort, was also at this meeting. So it is possible candidate Trump didn't know anything about this. He may not have monitored the schedule of all three of these very senior people in his campaign, meeting with a Russian lawyer with some ties to the Kremlin. That's certainly possible. That's the White House position. But it is worth noting, Elaine, that in today's statement, the president said nothing about his awareness or lack of awareness, didn't say the facts would vindicate his son, didn't say his son did nothing wrong. All it said was he's a high-quality person. I applaud him for his transparency. And after that, the White House deflected every single question related to the Russian investigation, even those that had nothing to do with Don Jr., to the various outside legal representatives who are speaking on behalf of those implicated in the Russia investigation. That is a tactical shift here at the White House, which is why I say this idea that the bravado about the Russia story being phony and fake is now metamorphosizing into something a little bit different, and you can feel and sense a bit of a bunker mentality setting in.
Major, I want to ask you more about that in a moment, but first about Vice President Mike Pence. His office released a statement Tuesday saying he is working every day to advance the president's agenda, that the vice president was not aware of the meeting, and that he is not focused on stories about the time before he joined the ticket. What should we infer from that?
Oh, I don't think there's any complicated inferences that need to be drawn there, Elaine. I think anyone who looks at that statement can instantly see Mike Pence, the Vice President of the United States, is saying, right now, I'm working diligently on behalf of the president. Vice President Pence is on the Hill almost every day dealing with Republican senators on the #1 task of this administration, repealing and replacing the Affordable Care Act. And he is also quite obviously distancing himself from this meeting, what the motivations were behind it, whatever legal implications may arise from it, and say, look, I wasn't even on the ticket then, so how could I either answer anything about that or have any interest in that? Well, that is a separate question. Everyone at this White House, if they aren't, should be interested in the political and legal ramifications of this most recent revelation.
Major, back to the president's response. It's interesting, his Twitter account has so far been silent on this specific question. Now, even though he was quick to defend his daughter Ivanka when she faced backlash, for instance, for sitting in for her father at a G20 meeting, you said this at the top there, that there seems to be a shift. The White House seems to be responding differently to this Trump Jr. situation. Can you just expound upon that? And also the care with which the president's statement was crafted, the vagueness of it.
Well, let me do the best I can with that, Elaine. The White House counsel's office, the communications shop, all senior officials were involved in that very brief statement about Don Jr. being a high-quality person, the president applauding his transparency. So it was, as I said, specifically designed to avoid any legal thicket that might be a part of Don Jr.'s meeting with this Russian lawyer back in June of last year. And the president's Twitter account, I think we should always be careful about drawing any immediate conclusions about what will or has happened with the president's Twitter account. But I think it is fair to infer from the careful and very limited nature of the president's statement, which, as I said, was reviewed in the top echelons of this White House, that there may be, on this particular matter, a decided and visible strategy to keep the president out of it, to not have him comment on it and not place himself or his son in any either rhetorical, political, or legal jeopardy that doesn't already exist. And there have been those who have observed the president's Twitter habits that have, from a legal perspective, said he has often done that, either to himself or people who work on his behalf. So the silence, I agree with you, is notable, and it will be similarly notable if it continues.
Finally, Major, we hear this constant refrain that the president and many of his closest advisors are political novices. You know these players very well. You spent months on the campaign trail. How far do you think the administration can carry that argument as a justification for instances like this one?
It is a plausible explanation. They are novices in politics and legalisms built around political activity. That is true. And it is worth reminding ourselves collectively as we cover this story and as the nation embraced during this historic election, a complete political outsider, untrained in not only the larger aspects of American presidential politics, but many of its nuances. And it is possible that those around the president were simply foolhardy or arrogant in their sense of knowing things and what things were proper and what things were not proper, or how things would be viewed in retrospect. That is certainly possible. But on matters of law, if they come to that, ignorance of the law, as everyone knows, is no excuse. And blundering into something that is illegal, or at least can be alleged to be illegal, is no defense. So the novice either excuse or explanation has an air of plausibility. But for anyone covering this story, all you can do is ask questions, report the answers, and follow those answers as they either fit with future facts or conflict with them. And what we have tried to establish tonight is given numerous opportunities to answer questions about cooperation or contacts truthfully. The evidence available to the country now is that during the campaign, the transition, and parts of this administration, the president and those around him were less than truthful.
All right, Major Garrett at the White House for us. Major, as always, thank you.
Sure.